Another approach to keeping two sets of books to report under both US GAAP and IFRS would be to set up a separate IFRS book in your existing company. The benefit to setting up a separate book rather than a separate company is that you'd have all of your assets in one company, and therefore you wouldn't need to worry about maintaining assets in two different companies. If you want to use this approach, you'll have to decide which book will become your IFRS book. If you have a book you're not using and it's not currently open, you can go to the Edit Company dialog, which is accessed off of the File menu. And once you're in this dialog, you can go to the Open Book field and select Yes to open that book. You can also change the title of that book in the Book Title field. For this example, I renamed Custom 1 Book to IFRS. If all of your books were open but you weren't using all of them, that's okay. You can still select one book that you're not using and rename it, and you'll be able to copy information over into that book, overwriting what may already be there. Once you set up the new IFRS book in the Edit Company dialog, you can then copy information over into that book by selecting Copy Book from the Asset menu. As you'll see in this Copy Book dialog, you will be able to select the source book, the book you want to copy from, and the destination book, the book you want to copy into. So for this particular example, I'm going to copy from my internal book, which I'm using as my US GAAP book, and I'm going to be copying into my new IFRS book. Once you make your selections and click on OK, FAS will copy all of the information from the internal book over into the IFRS book. So I'm going to take a look now at the asset detail for my building asset. This will let me know if all the information was copied over. So let's go into the asset detail here, and I'll see that the information in my new IFRS book is the same as the information in my internal book, right after performing the copy book procedure. Now I can begin making the appropriate changes in my IFRS book, such as selecting the appropriate method and useful life, and perhaps changing the acquisition values to reflect what it should be for IFRS purposes. You may run across a situation where you need to expense something under one of the standards but capitalize it under the other standard. In this case, you could select a depreciation method of no for one of the books, and FAS will not depreciate that asset. You could then create an asset group with all of the assets that have a depreciation method of no if you ever needed to find all of your expensed assets. And then for the other book, you could select the appropriate depreciation method and life and depreciate that same asset. And so as you can see, by setting up separate books for US GAAP and IFRS, you only have to enter the assets one time in FAS, selecting the appropriate depreciation attributes in each book. As I mentioned previously, you can set up an asset as expensed in one book and capitalized in another. You can also modify the acquisition value and/or life if you had to, say, impair the asset under IFRS but not under US GAAP. FAS is completely flexible and will allow you to set up your assets any way you want so that you can properly report under both US GAAP and IFRS.